My wife's laptop makes this sound like it's trying to escape. To be fair, it's not exactly new, and it's not exactly having a new problem, but whenever her fingers hit the keys, her little computer decides that now is the time. I'm going to launch myself into a better world. And the fans, they start whooshing like they're going to achieve escape velocity. Now, at least part of the problem, it turns out, is that she has too many tabs open on her web browser. I'm pretty sure she's going for some kind of record. In her defense, she says that this is how she keeps track of good stories, even if some of these stories were first located during the pandemic. Despite her protests, I am pretty sure more than a few are duplicates. And there's at least one occasionally playing music. I was sitting next to her on the couch yesterday listening to her little laptop struggle for life and air, and I realized that maybe this is what my brain feels like, at least since the last election, right? My brain feels like it's spending too many hours revving like a jet, too many tabs open, tracking too many stories, too many things trying to be carried all at once. Now, my goal this week and every week is to write one clean, focused message, one idea, one story, elegant, streamlined, well-behaved, as I usually do. But what I ended up with is a draft that had too many tabs open. But maybe that's not really a problem. Maybe the world is too complex, I thought. Too beautiful, too broken to be captured by a single story. So today I'm going to tell you a few. One is small and ordinary. One is ancient and mystical. One is vast and inspiring. And together, I think they tell a bigger story about brokenness, about repair, and about direction. So my first one comes from a few years ago when I came across a photo that stopped my social media time mid-scroll. I found myself looking at a bowl, one that had clearly been broken at some point, but someone had filled the cracks with shining seams of gold. This, I learned, was the practice of a Japanese tradition called kintsugi. Anybody ever seen this before? I've talked about it before, right? Many of you have seen these photos, I'm sure, when a bowl or cup gets put back together with an adhesive that is mixed with powdered gold, right? These repairs do not hide damage. Instead, the cracks are illuminated. The damage and repair become a treasured part of the story of this bowl. The object does not get restored to its original state. Instead, it becomes more beautiful precisely because it was broken. I remember spending hours marveling at various examples, and the images have stayed with me, probably because these days the world feels a little cracked, too. Our political system, our public trust, our personal resilience, our faith in the inherent worth and dignity of some of our neighbors. Cracks everywhere. But I wonder if kintsugi might offer us a different way of seeing brokenness, not as a sign of failure or moral weakness or of some irrevocable defect, but as an opportunity for some kind of sacred repair. I wonder what the world would look like if we chose to do that work, to make it better. The kintsugi bowl reminds me of this other story. One goes right to the other in my head. This one is from the Jewish mystical tradition. In the beginning, the Kabbalists say, the divine oneness that was all in all poured its light into 10 vessels of unsurpassed beauty, 10 ways of approaching divinity, 10 steps to reach infinity, 10 emanations from the one that is to the all that might yet be. But the light was infinite. It was too powerful. The 10 vessels shattered into fragments that scattered across the universe, and with those scattering pieces went the mystical light, the sparks of the divine. Sparks that were then hidden, buried, and lost to time and memory. This is a sad story, but is also an origin story, the start of humanity's hero journey. Because it was after this calamity, after the breaking of the vessels, after the shattering of the great unity of original wholeness into the brokenness that is our world, that God reached down. And out of the dust and the mess and the debris that was left behind, God made something amazing. He shaped helpers. He breathed into them, gave them life, and charged them with a single task, tikkun olam, the repair of the world. The mystical helpers, that's you, humanity. According to the Jewish mystics, you are the endless, joyful hope of God. You are here to fulfill ancient prophecy, to find the vanished light, to mend the brokenness of the world, to create with your labor, your love, and your sacrifice the world as it was meant to be, as it was always meant to be. That is your job, they say. You were never meant to do this alone, of course. The work of repair is collective, communal work. It is spiritual work. It is the kind of work that can only be done one golden seam at a time. My third story enters centuries later and comes from a very different tradition. Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, a Jesuit priest, paleontologist, and mystic, believed that the universe was not static. And at that time, that was revolutionary. He believed instead that it was evolving, and not just biologically, but spiritually. He came to see the whole sweep of evolution from stardust to human consciousness, not as random, but as purposeful, and aimed at a kind of cosmic horizon, a far-off fullness of love and unity, a destiny toward which the whole of creation is moving. This movement isn't accidental or random, not just drifting aimlessly on a sea of chance, but instead we are being pulled, drawn forward, lured by a deeper reality that Teilhard called the omega point. And he believed that you and I are answering that call. We are helping the future become what it was meant to be. Our job, our point, our purpose is to move the cosmos toward greater awareness, fuller communion, deeper compassion, and ever more radiant interdependence. All of our human striving and searching, all of our heartbreak and compassion and hope are part of a cosmos that is trying to become something bigger, something deeper, something better, something beautiful. We are the universe not only aware of itself, but choosing to evolve into something beyond imagination. Teilhard showed us a cosmic map, but it's up to us to keep building the way forward. How to do that brings me to my last story, because spiritual evolution, as Teilhard imagined it, was a compassionate revolution, one that only happens through connection, through community, through people gathering around shared values and trying, however imperfectly, to live those values out. And perhaps the way forward is what James Freeman Clarke was pointing to with his 5 points of a new theology. Now, this was 1886. And Clarke wrote that Unitarians had this vision of human progress as one that went onward and upward forever. You've heard me say that before, too. To that end, Clarke preached that the human spirit is very much capable of growth, capable of moral evolution, capable of change. Not because people were born perfect, but simply because we can learn, we can change, we can grow, we can choose to be better. Today, we know that that kind of progress doesn't just happen because time passes, and it isn't inevitable. Slavery, poverty, war, genocide. These recurring horrors reappearing throughout human history show us that progress is never guaranteed and that healing takes more than time passing. Repair takes work. It takes vision. It takes sacrifice. It takes people who are willing to look at the fractures in the world and say out loud, we can do better. We must do better. A little over 100 years ago, the need to do better gave birth to the social gospel movement. Those ancestors of ours imagined a church that didn't wait for heaven, but helped build it here, in real life, on real streets, for real people in real time. They did not imagine a fantasy of clouds, harps, and halos, but a world where everyone had enough, where the hungry could eat, the lost could find shelter, the oppressed would be liberated, where children could thrive, where the earth and everyone on it was honored. A today where no one is disposable. We've come a long way in the last century, but that vision is still our gospel, our good news. A gospel not of escaping into an imaginary heaven, but of transformation at the only time that ever matters, today, right here, right now. We Unitarian Universalists are not called to wait it out on the sidelines and just hope for things to improve, but to show up and make them better ourselves. We say that human salvation, if any is on offer, will only ever arrive through the imagination of human minds, the compassion of human hearts, but most importantly, the labor of human hands. Aspiration through inspiration from perspiration. That is our way. And that vision is alive in every community that gathers to learn, to give, to serve, to build, to become. Which is to say, that vision is alive here. As I turn to the close, I want to pause for something that feels important because I know that many of us are carrying a weight today. To put it mildly, there is a heaviness in the air, a sense of unease, a disconnection, a wondering of whether things we trusted are crumbling to dust right in front of us. The headlines are relentless. The political climate, hostile. Into institutions that once seemed solid now seem fragile, even targeted. The current administration, not to be too blunt about it, has been a corrosive, undermining the very systems meant to protect democracy, dignity, and the vulnerable. And so it isn't weird that maybe some of you have felt in recent weeks or months a spiritual kind of vertigo. Where do I stand? Who is holding the center? How do I stay anchored when the ground seems to shift beneath me? If you have felt alienated, you are not alone. If you have felt discouraged, you are not alone. If you have wondered what it means to belong in this time, you are not alone. That's why today, this sermon of mine is not about politics. It's about spiritual grounding in the face of a real, present instability. And here is that grounding. You are part of something larger than this moment. You are part of a tradition that remembers repair in the face of rupture. You are held by a faith that says, this world may be broken, but it is not abandoned. Japanese craftsmen understood that brokenness was not the end. Jewish mystics envisioned divine light reclaimed from ordinary dust. Our own ancestors saw progress, onward and upward, not guaranteed, but as the endless spark of the possible. Teilhard saw a universe struggling, unfolding, and always becoming. And you, beloved community, are part of that becoming. That is what this congregation is. That is why we gather here. Not a refuge from the brokenness of the world, but a place where we practice its repair. Not a perfect institution, but a vessel, maybe cracked, but still holding light. This is not just a sanctuary. It's a workshop for healing, a seedbed for transformation, a rehearsal space for the world we want to create. When you give your time, your care, your money, your presence, you are not just filling a hole in the budget. You are mending the world. You are participating in a cosmic movement toward love. You are making the abstract real. The truth is, my life, like yours, may well have too many browser tabs open. And that's okay. Whatever it takes to keep track of our stories, whether it's a golden bowl carefully mended, or a universe alive with scattered light waiting to be gathered, or a future that is not fixed but is still unfolding and calling us always forward. In these stories, I hear the good news. These stories aren't just dust. They are us. Because the world is still being written, still being shaped, still being healed. And we, you and I, we are not just readers of the story. We are the co-authors, the menders, the builders, the healers. We are the mystics who sing our songs of laughter and lament, longing and light under an endless sea of stars. The great Leonard Cohen once reminded us that there's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. But today, I wonder if maybe it's also how the light gets back out. Through us, through our lives, through our labor. Because this isn't just a time for reflection, it's a time for action. The bowl won't mend itself. The sparks won't gather themselves. The arc of the moral universe won't bend by itself. It needs you. You were made for this. It's time to pick up your tools. And I wonder if the most sacred tool to have right now is a hammer. Not to destroy, to build. Not to hurt, but to shape. Not to close things off, but to open something new. Today, the question is not whether the world is broken. It is. It always has been. Instead, the question is, what kind of story will we tell with our lives? What will we mine with the gold of our love and compassion? What sparks of hope, of love, of joy, of faith will we choose to gather? What future will we call forth? What will we choose to wrestle into being? What will we make for ourselves, our children, our descendants, out to the seventh generation and beyond? One story at a time, one act of love at a time, one step at a time, onward, upward, forever. That is our job. This is our world, and this is who we are. Endless, beloved, and filled with glorious purpose, as it ever was, so will it ever be. Amen, and blessed be.
Visit us at uusg.org.